It's good to be with you all. This is the Free Traveler Monthly Call we've been doing for almost 2 years now, I think, every month. We've had some amazing people on here. Bob Dicsoun's going to be joining us here. Turns out there's a lot of people exercising their freedoms on this planet, especially in this country. We've had Sue Ann on in the past, and then there's Rick Martin on in the past. Amazing people who I've never heard of that Clint has found or I've found. And the reason is that free people don't ask permission to be free. We exercise our freedom. I'm really honored to have you on tonight, Bob. So I'm going to give you a short introduction and let you kind of go at it. Bob Dicsoun has been driving without a license for 20 years, over 20 years, and we're Facebook friends. And so I keep an eye out for anybody who is doing this type of work, because this is transformational, evolutionary, empowering stuff. And there's a lot of good people out there that are doing it. It takes courage. And his car is registered to his church. Like a year ago, I had private plates on my car, and many of you have private plates because we've been extorted at such a level that is truly unacceptable. And Bob has had enough, and I was just really inspired by his courage and commitment to freedom. But the main thing is that he's doing the work. And one of the key takeaways I got is that we're not allowed to do business with the state when we're the church. And I'm not going to steal any of his amazing story. So let's see if we can have Bob, if you want to say hello, Bob, and kind of share what inspired you to start this journey over 20 years, no license, and putting your car into the church entity is amazing. So you have so much to share, and feel free to open it up and share kind of what started this for you and where you're at now. We'll proceed.
It's a long story. It basically has gone my whole life. I've been, I guess, an outsider forever. I left home when I was 5 and seen the inside of more jails than most people. Basically, I was just a troublemaker. I wasn't able to conform, I guess. So that started a lot of my journey because I had to learn to do things, I guess, to, I don't know, avoid their system. I've tried a lot of things. I went through the continental United States system, the marshals and all that. I became a marshal. And I learned a lot about all that when I seen most of the people that was starting all that end up in prison for filing papers, paper terrorism. So I said, well, that may not be a good idea. So I had to learn other ways to, I guess, stay out of the system. And I just realized that I didn't ask to be in the system, and I don't have to ask to get out of it. So I've done a lot of research in ways to avoid dealing with them. When I stumbled across something in the Utah Constitution that says there shall be no union between church and state. And I thought, well, that's an awesome idea. I mean, how can I use that to my advantage, right? So I started doing a lot of research into it. And my son lived in Oregon, and he's a shaman. He does the Native American ceremonies with the ayahuasca and peyote and all that. They were having a hard time with that church because it seemed like they were all embezzling something from somebody somewhere. So he decided it wasn't a path he wanted to go on. So we decided to start our own church. And this was about roughly 10 years ago about. We decided to start our own church. Well, and the idea for our church was he was doing all of his ceremonies at a place called Spirit Falls. And so Spirit Falls it was. So the name of our church is Spirit Falls. And it's a holistic church, meaning we deal in mostly herbal-based medicine. We try to live as natural as we possibly can. Doesn't always work, but we try. And in doing all of that, I thought, well, because even in the United States Constitution, it says there shall be no union between church and state. Basically, they can't make laws, that affect the church. And so I thought about, well, that's the only way out of this system, because all my life I was raised to believe that man is a church, man is a temple, and we should treat ourselves as such, act as such, live the good life, treat people the way you want to be treated, don't purposely hurt somebody or endanger somebody. And so I've tried to live that way. And that's kind of where our church goes. We have the Native American ceremonies, and we try to live a good life, try to treat people with the utmost respect. But I refuse to join their system. And so because of that, that's why I turned everything over to our church. I put my truck in, and my wife's truck in the church. I put my motorcycle in the church. Our home is a church, and it's well established. We've had this house as a church for, roughly 8 years or better. And it's well posted all the way around the place that it is a church. I've now gained a lot of respect from the law enforcement around here. They ask to come on the property now instead of just walking on, which has been quite nice, in a lot of ways. So in our area, right, I feel free to drive anywhere I want with my truck and everything. I went the route of Trent Goodbody. I don't know how many of you know him. I went the route of his place for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought a car, a little $500 car, and I slapped him on there, and I called it my sacrificial lamb, because its only job was to try and get repoed or
Right.
impounded, whatever. That was its only purpose, is to see how long I could drive in it without the cops taking it. And needless to say, it broke down, so I finally sold it. But I didn't want to lose my good trucks. I have two really nice trucks, and I have my 21 motorcycle, and I don't want to lose either of those. I try to stay in my own area as much as possible. But if I have to drive out of my comfort zone, I always take my wife, because she is a licensed driver. And, if I end up going to jail, well, she can drive home. I also, when I'm out and about, if I'm just by myself or whatever, even with her, basically, I always pull into a private piece of property. If the cops pull me over, like, I will drive into a private restaurant, a private gas station, whatever, before I'll pull over on the side of the road, because that takes me out of their jurisdiction. And they have no right to touch me on private property without the owner's permission. So that's why I always go there. And it saves my vehicle a lot of the times. Most of the time it saves my vehicle.
You get pulled over, or how many times have you been pulled over, let's say in the last 5 years, that you've had it registered, or not even registered, you just have it in your church's name? When we talk about the documents.
Actually, it's been 6 years, I guess, since 6 years ago I got pulled over, and then a year and a half ago 2 years ago I got pulled over. None of which I went to court for. I don't bother, because it's their business, their building, their property, and I have no right to go in there. They have no right to ask me to come in there, so I don't. Yes, they've issued warrants, but I ignore them. Figure if they want me in there bad enough, they know how to find me. Mm-hmm. And so far they haven't. So far that they know where I'm at. They just haven't bothered me, and I like it that way. But I tell them, hey, you have your sandbox, you stay in it, and I will stay in mine. We don't need to intermingle, coexist. Just you stay on your side of the fence, I'll stay on mine. And it's working so far for me. I don't argue with them on the side of the road. I used to fight with them all the time on the side of the road.
Yeah, what do you say now?
I just let them say their spiel, and they usually hand me a ticket with something on it, and I usually send it back to them with a, no contract issue on it, and forget about it. I don't really get upset too much with them. I don't sue them or anything because what they do in their business is none of my business. And like I said, if it was my name, I might have a problem with it, but I don't use that name. That's theirs and not mine. I'm old enough to give myself a name if I want one, or God, my exes have called me lots of names. So names are just something people post on you, whatever they might say. But like I said, I've been called everything. So I look at it this way: there's no man alive that can say, what my given name was or who gave it to me. So at that point, I figured I can make up my own name if I want, and I have. And I don't use theirs anymore.
So do you sign the ticket on the side of the road or no?
I don't sign anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can show proof that I haven't signed them. I don't sign the tickets.
Mm-hmm.
I put I have an overlay that I put on it, and it says, no contracts, not whatever, not God, I can't remember all that's on it, but basically no contract, accepted for value, returned for value, that sort of thing. And I just send it back to them certified. And then I forget about it. Let's figure it, I answered their thing and I don't care anymore about it. And I think that's what saved me, is because I don't sit there and try to pursue lawsuits against them because I was harmed or anything. Because in fact, when I do go to jail, and I've been there several times, and not always just over tickets, but I've been there several times, they don't like me there.
Why not? What do you do in jail? They don't like you.
They try to get me out as soon as possible. Because when I'm in there, I sit and I help other people get out of their tickets and stuff. And they don't like that. In fact, they do anything they can to get me out of spot. Well, the last time they took me out in the middle of nowhere and just dropped me off. Said, find your own way home. But I did, so no big deal. But I look at it this way: they didn't get what they wanted. And they wanted me to sign a contract with them, which I never signed. They wanted my pictures and my fingerprints, which I never gave. So it's a win for me. But then, that with the church, I went even further and got a ministry. So I basically, and anyone can go through and do it. It's cheap, like $30, $40 to get the little packet. And next thing you know, it makes you a minister, and you can do weddings and, childbirths and blessings and all that stuff, if you choose to. I only did it because I wanted the paperwork, because we do our weddings and all that totally different than anything like that. But I needed a paperwork, something I could stick on my car other than those signs that I have on it and the plates that says, yeah, I'm a minister. And therefore everything I do in my vehicle is church work, God's work. It's whatever it's. So, and that's what I tell them. That's what the sign on the car says. I'm in the business of doing church work, whether I'm going to bless a house, bless a baby, a wedding, or I just have somebody in my vehicle that is needing protection. Because we also started what's called safe places.
Yeah, talk about that. That's good.
Our church is a safe place. And what we do is the people, around here, like, somebody who's in a situation where they're being abused, whether it be a spouse, a child, somebody, and they need to get away from a situation they're in, they can contact us and we will help them get to a safe place. whether it be another relative or a friend or something. We will help them get to a safe place. And if I get pulled over, that's the thing I tell the officers. I don't have to tell you who's in my vehicle because it's my obligation to protect them and their identity. And I can't trust you not to tell whoever, that I have them. I can't trust you not to expose them. So therefore, I can't tell you who they are. And I do that with everybody in my car, just so, I don't have to worry about some cop saying, well, who's this in the back seat? Well, it's none of their business. They're protected under church, So, and in a nutshell, that's, I guess, what it is I do.
How about the IDs?
Special...
Yeah, the IDs. You mentioned there's an ID that you'd use, not a state ID.
I shared with you a sample of our church ID. Now, I make those up for all our members, and it has a picture of them, has their date of birth on it, and then basically contact information of some sort. And then it has the laws on the back of it that protect their rights. The court case that we won as far as Mooney versus the United States, and then, the normal one, like the 242, and we have the Constitution on the back there where it says, there shall be no union between church and state. And those are on the back of the card. So the cop, he can read those and you can tell him, say, these are the reasons why you can't do anything. And so far, they've worked with my son and the people that we have given them to. As a member of the church, they're entitled to do church work. And every time they're out and about, they're doing church work, whether, they're spreading the word, helping somebody get to a safe place, whatever it is. The cops need to stay out of their way. That's why we use our own personal church ID. And then I have a minister card that identifies me as a minister, which, when I filed online and got that, they sent it to me. But it's just there for basically decoration, but it does help when the cops look at it. They say, oh, okay. but yeah, it's mostly our ID is just our church ID. We don't carry government ID of any kind because we have to stay out of their system. And that's the only way to stay out of their system. They don't have a passport because that's all part of their system. Because they don't own the land, they don't control the land. God made it, and we're free to travel anywhere on it that we choose. In fact, we were put here to go and spread his word, supposedly, right? I mean, that's the rumor. So, like I said, I just do it. I don't know how much I can tell you as far as that goes. Like I said, it's just my way of doing things is basically through the church. And I just try to stay out of their way, and I tell them to stay out of my way. And like I said, when somebody does call them or when they do come to my house, I make them stand out on the road. They're not welcome on the property. And so far, they do it. My neighbors think it's funny to watch, but they do it.
Now, why do they do that? Because you have the signs posted there, or they don't want to deal?
Yeah.
Are they afraid of you in some way or something? Why do they obey the signs that says church parking only?
Because it's church property. That's the only reason. It's church property. I don't have an address on my house. So I can flat out tell them, this is not part of Utah. This property does not belong to Utah. And unless they can show me a deed where they bought the property or they have title to the property, they want to show me that, then we'll discuss something else. But I said, in the meantime, this is my property, and you're not welcome on it. And it's worked for, years, 10 years, 11 years now. I've made them stand out on the street every time they come by. Just other little things like I was trying to keep my daughter from getting her car repoed. Bank said they wanted it back, and she said she couldn't give it up. And I says, well, you're not taking it. And every time the tow truck driver would come by and try to take it, I would tell him, he's not welcome to, and if he had a problem with that, to call the cops. And sure enough, he would call the cops. Cops would come out and ask him what he wanted and come talk to me. And I'd say, well, they're saying that this car out here belongs to them. He cannot show me proof that he bought it. He cannot show me proof that he owns it. He can't show me some bill of sale or anything. So unless he has those documents on him, he cannot come on the property and take it. And I says, this is private property, and this is a civil matter, not a criminal matter. You guys are not needed. And you're welcome to leave at any time. And they would go back, tell the tow truck driver, well, you're on your own.
These are local cops or sheriffs?
All of them, sheriffs, local cops, it doesn't matter. I've dealt with them all, and I make them all stand on the street. The dog catcher came by and was trying to cite me personally because they said a dog that was staying at the house shit on the neighbor's lawn. I was looking at him and I said, but I didn't do it, so why are you after me? I said, do you have pictures of me crapping on her lawn? And he said, no. I said, do you have pictures of the dog crapping on her lawn? Well, no. I said, is it a crime? And he said, no. I says, well, then what are you doing here? He says, well, I have to cite you. I says, if the dog did something like that, if the dog went over there and crapped on the neighbor's lawn, then arrest the dog. And I said, but meanwhile, it has nothing to do with me. So you're welcome to leave anytime. Just get out of here. I don't need you. Well, needless to say, he left. And he hasn't been back since. But he did issue a warrant for my arrest, which, a year and a half ago, I'm still ignoring it.
For a misdemeanor, or what kind of charge?
It's a misdemeanor. But, basically what they're charging me with is a nuisance animal. And I always laugh because we had problems here with our neighbor on the other side of us because my wife would sleep during the day and her dogs barked nonstop. I tried telling her to keep the dogs quiet, and we got into kind of a heated argument over her dogs not being quiet. And she called off the cops again on me and said that I was threatening her over the fence. And cops come over, and it was funny because he asked politely, can I come over and talk to you? I said, sure. And he gets there, and he says, well, she claims that you're over here screaming and yelling at her and threatening her over the fence. And I said, I never threatened her. I said, I screamed and yelled at her, but I never threatened her. He says, you didn't threaten her? I said, no. So he went back and he talked to her. And in fact, he told her, because I heard him, he goes, he's welcome to yell at you, scream at you, say whatever he wants over the fence all day long if he wants. But unless he threatens you, you have nothing to say. And he left. And that was the last we heard of them, too.
You think that's because your position on going to jail? You want to talk about how you said jail's not scary you at all?
Well, no, jail doesn't scare me. I've been there too many times. I mean, like I said, I left home at 5, okay? Keep this in mind. 5 years old, I was taken from my mom. Well, basically given up by my mom. From that moment on, I was in and out of places. I never knew where I was going to wake up the next morning. Never knew where I was going to sleep that night. So you learn to not really count on a whole lot or count on anybody, or you don't get attached to anyone or anything. So yes, I'm a little cold when it comes to things like that. And I slept in worse places than jails. So no, a jail doesn't scare me. I spent 3 years in jail for something I actually did, for a crime I actually committed. But it taught me something while I was in there, because I had to fight every day I was in there. Because I was this cute little blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy that they all liked. And for anyone that's ever been in there, I think you might know what that's like, but
Hmm.
it's not a good feeling because, you have to sleep with your back towards the wall. But it made me stronger, made me a lot meaner. And at that time, I was ready to take on the world. I didn't care whether I won or lose. I just didn't care. And I haven't really changed a whole lot since. I look at jail as, something like, God, I can do 10 days standing on my head. I can do 100 days standing on my head. No big deal. The whole time I'm in there, I'm going to be helping other people win their court cases. I'm going to help other people in there so they don't have to stay there as long. So it doesn't really bother me to go in. I work it out in my favor, and believe me, I make good money in jail.
Yeah,
So it's
how
not,
so?
well, because, people are willing to pay for my services in there. They're willing to pay me to help them. I'm good with that. I will always go in there with the idea that I'm going to start teaching people how to beat their cases,
Mhm.
to how to be out of the system, and teach them that the system can only hold them as long as there's something they fear. And that's all it is. Anyone who's got even the slightest amount of fear can be controlled. It doesn't matter what it is. Being afraid of losing your wife, being afraid of losing your kids, being afraid of losing an animal, being afraid of losing your home, your car, whatever it is. If you're afraid of something, then they've got something to hold over your head. And like I said, me growing up, I never got attached to anything really. So it didn't matter. They couldn't hold anything over my head. Like a judge, told me once when I was younger, I got a DUI, and he wanted me to pay $1,000. And I tell him, no, I'm not going to pay the $1,000. He says, well, then I'm going to have to put you in jail. I says, go ahead. He says, I don't want to put you in jail. So, you got to pay $1,000. This went back and forth for an hour or so. And needless to say, the judge finally says, well, get out of here. So, I wouldn't give him $1,000 and he wouldn't throw me in jail. I says, well, that's the way it is. So from then on, I'd get pulled over and it'd be $450 more on top of that. And the judge would call me in and say, "Are you going to pay this?" I said, "Just like all the others." "Nope, I'm not going to pay you nothing." I said, "If you want the money out of me, stick me in jail. I'll work it off. But I'm not paying you a dime." Then because he wouldn't put me in jail, I never paid. And that's just the way I've been my whole life. I just like, you want what? You got to find a way to get it out of me because I sure as hell ain't handing it to you.
Mhm.
So
So
anyway,
it's
that's
helpful
my
to have
life.
a partner because you said your wife has a license, but you don't. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a little strategic when you leave the house. If she goes down, at least she can drive off. But
Well,
you are like saying, screw the system. I don't want to participate in any of it. If you want me, my money, you're gonna have to put me in jail.
see, I drive. I don't let my wife drive. I drive. So I'm not worried about it. I always, everywhere we go, no matter what state we're in, I drive. That's just the way it is. Go. I can't handle it the other way. I don't sit in the passenger seat too well.
Mhm.
But my wife is there, and she usually goes with me, when we're going out of town or out of state or something like that, if for no other reason than to bring my truck back home. That's all, just to make sure my truck gets back home.
Mhm.
And I like the company. But other than that, I mean, that's the only way I do it. I mean, it helps to have her on long trips. When I'm just around town and in here, my area, I don't even bother. In fact, the last time the cops in this town bothered me was over, 12 years ago. And they haven't bothered me since. And that was, I told one, they were pulled my wife over because of something her kid did. They were harassing her. And so they pulled the car over and I was driving and I didn't have a license or anything. And the cop comes up and he says, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" I says, "No." He says, well, it says here you don't have any insurance. I looked at him. I says, well, I figure that's what you were doing back there when you were swerving and couldn't keep your car under control. But I says, I said, I'll be glad to talk to you about that if you can show me the law that says I have to have it. And he looked at me like, he says, well, I don't know what it is right offhand. I says, well, you got a computer in your car. You used it to run the plates. Let's go back there and look for the law. And he says, well, I can't right now. I said, well, if you're going to write it on my ticket, you have to have it. He said, well, you can get it from the judge. I said, no, the judge wasn't here. Judge didn't witness it. Judge doesn't know anything about what happened here tonight. So I can't ask the judge nothing. I says, you're the one that witnessed whatever I did. You're the one that has to testify. You're the one that has to put it on my ticket. So I says, you need to go back and look the case up, look the law up, and come back and put it on my ticket. If it's a crime. And he says, well, I wasn't going to write you a ticket anyway. I said, then get the fuck out of here. And I left. And I haven't been bothered by him since. I've contacted the governor here. I've contacted the mayor here. I've contacted the attorney general here. I've contacted the sheriff, and I've contacted the chief of police. And I've asked every single one of them to show me a law that requires a church to have plates on their vehicle. None of them could do it. They can't. They can't show me a law that says church has to have plates. The DMV can't show me a law that says that a church has to have plates on their vehicles, because churches are tax exempt, and all those are taxes. Basically, I tell them, and I didn't ask permission to drive without plates when I talked to them. I told them I was going to. I says, these are the things that we're going to be doing. And I says, we have meetings, we have things we have to do around town. And I says, none of my members are going to have plates on their cars. And I says, but, to be fair to you, I says, is there anything that you would really like us to have, like on the side of our vehicles, so that when we're driving down the road, you look at it and say, oh, that's a church, and yeah, that's what they're doing, and leave them alone. And they said, they'd always tell me, no, you have to have this, the law says. I said, but you can't tell me what the law is, so how can you say we have to do it? And usually I'd get hung up on about that point. So none of them from the highest down could tell me any law that requires a church to have plates on their car. So I told them all to go to hell. If you can't do it, then you have to leave us alone. And that's the way we're doing it. That's, like I said, I stand on that. I live by it. Our church is not part of their system, and it never will be. That's why we can't go to court. That's why we can't pay their fines. That's why we can't sit and bullshit with them on the side of the road. I mean, we don't have to have communication with them.
So that's like the key point, is that the church owns the vehicle. And you said it earlier, our body is a church. I agree with that. Our body's a temple. Spirit of God is within us. So we're being truthful and honest about, our beliefs. So you say that it can't be a union between the church and the state. Show me the law. And do you do that verbally with these public officials, or you put it in writing, or how do you communicate with them?
I've done it. I've done it verbally. I've done it on the phone with them. I've done it personally. I've done it, in an email, because, like I said, I wanted them to show me proof, something, some law somewhere that they created that said a church had to obey their rules. And they can't produce it. I mean, you guys can all try in your own states, call them up and ask them if there's a law that requires a church to do anything, whether it be plates, whether it be register your gun, whether it be paying taxes on your property, whatever it is, they cannot require a church to do a damn thing. So
That's
it completely
beautiful.
takes you out of the system.
So then you don't register your car with the DMV, do you? You just have like a piece of paper that says this is a church. I don't have to register my car. Is that right? Or what type of paperwork do you have?
You can, as long as you have something like if you go into the car lot, right, you have the option to tell the car lot that no, I want to do the licensing myself. When you go in and buy it, I want to license it myself. For instance, like on my motorcycle, we went to Oregon and bought my motorcycle, and we said, no, we're not going to license it here. We'll license it when we get back. So we got to do all that ourselves. They handed us the paperwork so we could do it. That's how you do it. I mean, you just tell them, and you have that right. It's part of buying a car. You can say, I want to choose where I license it. A lot of people don't think about that when they're in there buying a car, but you have that right to say, no, I want to license it myself. Because I haven't decided yet where we're going to park it, where we're going to be. So you can't very well license it for me if I don't know where I'm going to be.
Yeah, that's a great point. You have to pay cash for the car, right? And so that way you have the actual.
So it's easier. It's easier if you do that, yes. But now my truck was used, and I did have to contact Chrysler Corporation to get a copy of the original title, which they did send me, and I do have now. Most cases, most of the time, a certified bill of sale will work. And you can use that certified bill of sale to say, hey, no, this is my personal property. And you can have that certified bill of sale go into your church's name. So on the back of my title, it now says that I transferred ownership of my vehicle to the church.
And do you have to notarize that or get a witness or anything? No,
because notarizing things is also government. Whereas out of that, it requires 2 or 3 signatures, witnesses. So if you're not going to use the government notary and stuff, you have to have 2 or 3 witnesses. And those witnesses, they can't challenge them. So, they're as good as any notary. But the notary is government. So you can't, if you're going to be a church, you can't work there through their paperwork either. Can't use their offices.
So you just certify it yourself and say, I am transferring ownership of this car to the church, and then.
Right. And you can have a couple witnesses say, yes, I was here and I witnessed him do it.
Right. And you said you don't have an EIN number. So the number that you have is a number that you've created, because it's not a corporation, but it's like a number, right?
No. The number I always use for the church is 508C1A. Because that is it's the Internal Revenues number for, that basically, if you all look it up, 508C1A, it says that churches are exempt from taxes, and they're exempt from filing taxes. So yeah, if you're going to use that, like to either get, tax exempt status at a store, or, tax exempt from, I don't know, the DMV or anyone else, it says churches cannot be taxed, and you don't have to prove you're a church. Because there's no law that requires a church to identify itself or to establish itself or to show proof of establishment. So a church is a church as soon as you say it is.
Right. And it's probably in every state constitution. You mentioned Utah, but I'm curious if some of the listeners want to look that up right now. That's what the whole country was founded upon, right? Separation of church and state. The original pilgrims wanted to come out here, the East Coast and worship God how they wanted without King George or whoever was before that, to be the head of the state and head of the church. And they said, no, separate them because there's a conflict of interest there. So I think this is a very powerful thing. Maybe we can take some questions. Your final thoughts here?
People can do their own due diligence on it. You're only as free as your mind will let you be. I learned that a long time ago. I mean, they can only control you if they have something to control you with.
Hmm.
So you have to free your mind of all things they can control you with. And you have to realize that it's a good day to die and stand on it.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it that way. Today's a good day to die, and I will stand on that. My beliefs are worth dying for. My family and friends are worth dying for, and I will stand on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is. Go ahead.
Yeah, everybody has to reach that place in their mind by themselves. And once they get to that point where they can say, I've got this, I am willing to do whatever I have to be free, and walk away from their system and walk away. Because you don't need to ask permission. You don't need to file paperwork. You don't need to file this document or this document with any court or any registry or anything else like that, because that's all their system. And all you're doing is asking them to say, will you let me be free? And why? You didn't ask to be in the system. Why should you ask to get out of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, because you said when you were born, you weren't there to, see someone give you the name. That's hearsay, right? You were not of an age of.
Yeah, it is hearsay, and you weren't of the age of, to contract or anything. So the age of majority, whatever they want to call it. And you have no firsthand knowledge as to where the name came from.
Right. And even you said your son changed his name. You don't have to say his name, but he had one name.
I don't mind saying my son's name.
Sure. Yeah, share a little bit about that, changing the name.
My son went into court and he filed a document that's called Walking on Water, and I have that. But basically all it does is it says that God created us and we are of a higher authority than you and all that, right? But my son changed his name on those documents to his Native American name, which was Dancing Wolf. So whenever he goes into court, or when he went into court, he would use Dancing Wolf as his name. Well, the judge in there said, okay, fine, we'll call you by Dancing Wolf, which meant the judge then changed his name to Dancing Wolf, legitimately on the record. So now his name is Dancing Wolf.
Right. And it could be any name. And as adults and free men and women on the planet, we're allowed to change our name. We're allowed to change beliefs.
Yeah, exactly. The name is not yours. You're not bound to it. So if you say, well, God, I don't like that name, I want to be this, you're welcome to change it. Hell, these other type of, characters, you know what I'm talking about, the ones that have all these different weird beliefs, change their names all the time. They used to have a guy's name, now they have a girl's name, whatever. So if they're, if it's easy for them to do, why can't anybody do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, it's their system. If you don't want to be a part of it, don't be a part of it. Change your name and walk away from it. Start all over again. Anyway, I'm done.
That's great, Bob. Clint, any thoughts before we take some questions?
Well, I want to welcome everybody and thank everybody for coming, and thank Bob for this wonderful peek into his life. The expressions of freedom are so pure and simple that it just rips right through all of this. Even after all of this time, I still think, well, if you want to change your name, you have to go fill out a form somewhere, right, with the government, right? It's just too funny how trained we are to ask permission and make sure government puts its stamp of authority and validation on everything we do. It really just continuously surprises me how much government has intruded into every aspect of our lives. And the right to travel is just one big example, but it just goes on and on and on and on. So let's mix it up with questions, perhaps. Bob, would you mind interacting with some of our people today?
Well, I'll stick around and see what I can do. I mean, I'll try and answer questions.
Yeah, yeah, great. Thank you. Portia.
Hi, greetings, everyone. So enjoyable. Thank you so much, Bob, for coming on and telling us a little bit. Really exciting. You know, I was going to ask you, but you answered the question if you had a 508c1a. I have an association myself, and I would be very interested to know how to get the documentation to do the pass to become a minister. Because that's the route I was thinking I would like to go. So this works out really, really well that you came on here today. And also I wanted to say that what you were saying about the name change was I had to do a name change, but I had to get it approved by the court, by the judge over here I'm on the East Coast in New York. And yeah, so, but everything you've said just resonated with me so much. I thank you so much for your presence, and I'm really, really excited to see that you are living this life and you're a great example for us all.
Okay, and then just a question. You said you have to get permission from the state to change your name?
No, I didn't.
I don't.
Well, the judge had to sign off on the order, and we had to publicize it in the newspaper.
And that was my point. Why? Because that's a government system, not a free man system.
Right.
And that's what I was getting at is I changed my name and I don't care who doesn't like it. I don't care who has, because I didn't choose the name I had to start with. And if I don't like it, I shouldn't have to keep it.
So how would
So
you?
I just changed them.
How do you
I just
how do you operate in commerce with the name that you changed? Because you don't operate in commerce at all. That's what I'm realizing. You are totally living in the private. No interaction.
I try real hard not to operate in commerce. And on those rare occasions, if I must operate in commerce, I use the commerce name.
Gotcha.
For instance, I went to, I believe, I can't think of the name of the store right offhand. I was trying to get a tax exempt status for our church. And they would not, under any circumstance, accept the 508c1a. And so I did finally say, all right, fine, put it under this. And I gave them my social security number. And they accepted that. And that's now, it says our church name, but the social security number was my old social security number for my old name. So I still use it, like I said, because we have the right to do commerce any way we want.
Right.
So you get to decide how and when you use that material.
Exactly. Okay. Well, one thing I also wanted to say too is, a lot of people don't realize that the church was tax exempt from the beginning. They never had a relationship with government, going back into the early foundations of our nation. And if you check, are you familiar with the Black Robe Regiment, that website about ministers and churches?
I started it.
Did you? You're kidding.
Yes.
Holy moly. That is so cool. Nice. I love that.
It was originally mine,
Yeah.
but we walked away from it. Me and my son walked away from it because the people that were in there didn't understand, basically how we were doing things. And so we said, you know what? We can't agree on, how this is going to be run. So we walked away from it.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. Wow.
Wow. It was ours to start with.
There it is. That's the foundation, of and another good book was In Caesar's Grip, that talks a lot about the separation of what they call the church and state. But they said back then it wasn't really separated in the way that it is today. The church and the ministers were very much in the government to keep control of them, to keep them actually, sort of in the line of God and not in the line of man. But the more and more
Well,
as we pulled away from it,
yeah,
that moved
yeah.
out of the
Well,
system.
well, you have to understand, everybody has a need to either control or be controlled. That's all there is
Yes.
to it. I mean, you're either controlling something or you're being controlled by something. And
Mhm.
that's usually why there's a connection between church and state.
Right.
You know, the church wanted the government to act in a way that they thought the government should act, and the
Yes.
government wanted to act without the church. So it was a control issue,
Mhm.
and government basically won. The church didn't. Churches
Yes,
decided to
government
walk
won.
away and
Mm.
not participate.
Right, right, right. And that's why now churches have to feel that they have to file that 501 C,
The
which
501c3,
yeah, which
501c3.
yeah, the 501c3, which they have to answer to the government under the 501c3, but what under the 508c1a, you're totally exempt. They cannot intervene or mingle. And that's why a lot of churches acquiesced during COVID because they were afraid of losing their exempt status under the 501c.
Exactly.
That's what was going on because you're still under Caesar's grip. That's what that book points
Exactly.
out. It's a fascinating read for anyone who's interested. I think you could pull it up online.
What book is that?
In Caesar's Grip.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it really talks about how government has, taken control of the church instead of it being the other way around in Caesar's Grip. It's a PDF. I think you can definitely find it on the internet, but it's in a lot of the private sites that I study with on Telegram. But yeah, this is amazing to find out. There it is, and it's a book too. You could pull it up. Very good read. You know, if you want to truly understand what's going on with government takeover as they slowly manipulate and take over this country. It's just crazy what's going on.
Okay, Dave, you there?
Oh,
Okay,
I yield the
David.
mic. Thank you.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I'm here. Yeah, Bob.
I shared a link in your messenger on FedBook
Okay.
to the Universal Life Church Ministry,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I think that's what this lady was just looking for, is how you go about doing that. And the link to the Universal Life Church Ministry is what it is. You go there, and basically you pay $40, and they send you a package that then allows you to be a minister, basically, and gives you, everything you would need to do weddings, childbirth, whatever, do birth certificates, all that stuff. You can get on their website, and whatever you need to run a particular type of church you want to run is on there. Doesn't matter what your church is, atheist, I don't know, Satanism, it doesn't matter what it is. You can find everything you need to run your church on that website. And like I said, it only costs like $40 to become a minister. So it's
Yeah,
worth
that's
every
great.
bit of it.
Yeah, that's a
It's
great
worth
link,
every
Bob.
bit of that $30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we pulled it
And
up.
then, yeah,
Yep, we put it in the comments, and Clint has it on the screen there. So that's a very exciting.
it's interesting because, like I said, I have a few documents that I got through them. I have the letter, basically the letter, of good standing that they write, saying that you're a minister in good standing. Which how do they know? But they give it to you, right? So it's worth it. I have, the clergy badge that hangs in my truck on my mirror.
Hmm.
I have the business cards that I give out to the to the local lot, parking lot attendants that try to pull you over. And then I have the card basically that says that I'm a minister. And then there's like placard cards that you can place in the windshield of your car. One is basically a parking pass that allows you to park anywhere. And the other one is a ministerial consultant placard. And you stick that one in your window, and it basically says, this vehicle is in official ministerial business. Which, as soon as they see that, they have to leave you alone. And that's why I have that one in my windshield, right over my my VIN number, so that they can't just read my VIN number either.
Covered the VIN number. Okay, nice.
Yeah, well, I used the ministerial consulate card to cover it. So if they're looking for that, they see the card, and I can say, see, I'm doing church work. Leave me alone. And there's like a little window decal that's like a clear decal that you can put on the window, and I have that right at the top corner of my window, so that even if I roll my window down a little bit, it's still there. That it also says minister. So there's plenty of stuff on my car, other than, like I said, my signs and my plates that say I'm doing, church work. And that's all I stand on. I tell them, whatever I'm doing is in church work.
I'm sorry, I have a question that might help you explain all this in terms of relevance to some of us. I've been asked to perform a wedding, and my 508c1a church ministry is under Mankinder. I'm wondering about the affiliations involved. So you have your own church name, but your ministry affiliation was acquired from Universal Life Church, or
Yeah.
how does that work?
So, yes, how you would say that is, yes, you got your ministerial certificate through this church, but that doesn't mean you stayed with that church. Then you decided to take your business and create your own church. That's where your other church name comes in. So yes, Universal Life Church may have gave me my ministry document, but Spirit Falls is where I practice. That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Great question. I just put in the comments there, I've officiated 3 weddings without any appointment because of various reasons, but we're all connected to God in source and almighty creator, whatever one wants to call it, infinite intelligence, infinite love, whatever the names are. That's the whole point, is that you have your religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs, and so do I, and the state has no power or authority to tell us how to believe and how to worship. And that's, I think, what humanity is getting back towards. It's a whole nother conversation. So I appreciate the questions, Michael and Portia. Anyone else want to ask some questions? This is an amazing conversation, Bob. We're really enjoying this. We can hear how clear and simple the pathway forward is. This is probably the path that our children and grandchildren will be taking, because there's no way to reform the system within the system that is a predatory, parasitical system based on coercion and terrorism, intimidation. I did want to make the point that Bob has made it clear that he is in a church in his car. The church plates and the church like magnetic thing on the side there, Bob, and then it sounds like you have something on the windshield, something in the rear view mirror. So you're over communicating. You're taking the extra initiative to tell all the law enforcement officers, hey guys, this is what we're doing. And then, we can hear how peaceful and calm you are. Like you said, you used to fight on the side of the road. And I kind of feel like that too. But then if you're all in and you said, I'm not afraid if they take me to jail. I'm not afraid if they kill me. Like, you know, there's this spiritual power which is in the individual, and we're not afraid. So I think that's what I'm really sensing again here on the video. It's really good that you over communicate to everyone there that this is a church matter, and, you know, respect that because you have no authority over here.
And that's exactly it. And that's and I carry that off into our safe place. Because if y'all remember, the church was originally supposed to be a sanctuary, a place where people could feel safe. Even murderers were supposed to be able to feel safe in a church. I mean, yes, God help them when they left, but they were all supposed to feel safe when they were in the church. And so, yes, I use it to that advantage, and I tell them that yes, it is a safe place, and everybody that's under my umbrella is safe. And we do things like help somebody out of a bad relationship, you know, who's being abused. We help them get somewhere safe. We do it if there's a child that's being abused by a parent and wants to go to the other parent. We help them get to the other parent or to a friend or whatever. I mean, because that's what you do. You help people out of bad situations. And that's why we also added the safe place to our church. And you're all, you know, you can all do that too in your own way. Make your church a safe place where people can always feel safe. Place, you know, where, you know, they can get, you know, get your help getting someplace safe or whatever. And that'll make it all worthwhile in the end.
Wow, that's some radical forgiveness there. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Your custom plates, Bob?
I get my plates from a website called Build a Sign.
I think our last month's guest might have recommended that too, Clint, when he had a more and pause 11 piece in Spanish on his plates. I think Michael, last month's Michael, used buildasign.com.
And you'll see in there's all kinds of things you can do. You can build your own plate. You can build your own signs, banners, magnets, yard signs, you name it. You can build them all there to represent your church. And that's what we've done. Like I said, I have a sign on my front, right at the curb in my front yard. It started out just I needed people to stop parking there. But because, well, my sprinklers kept getting broke. And I was tired of it. So I wanted to put something out there, and I couldn't just say no parking because the city would come along and say, hey, wait, you can't do that. And I thought, okay, fine. So I made the sign say, this is Spirit Falls parking only. All other vehicles will be towed. And they've left it alone. They don't bother it no more. So yes, I have a no parking sign out front that says, and it says what my church is, right? I have a sign on my house that says what the church is, or that it's a church. I have a tree out front that says it has a no trespassing sign, and then it has a sign on there that says that Spirit Falls is under 24/7 hour surveillance, video surveillance, and all violators will be prosecuted. I have those on all of our back fences so that there's no getting around it. There's no way they can come in from any different direction and say they didn't see it. I have cameras placed on the house and on the back property so that, you know, I can see when, you know, anyone comes in, or I am notified as soon as somebody comes in, whether it be a dog, a cat, or a person, but it still notifies me that somebody's on the property. So, I mean, it's just, that's kind of how I'm protecting the church, you know. And again, that's so that if we have somebody in our house who was in a bad situation, I don't want the cops coming here looking for them, because basically I don't know if I can trust them either. You know, I don't know who sent them. I don't know why they're there. So, you know, and it's like, if the cop knows they're there, then he might go back and tell whoever, you know, that that's where they're at. And the next thing you know, they'll be over here terrorizing our house. So No, I don't even let the cops know that somebody's being protected in our house.
Yeah, it's fair play because the cops often just do what they're told, and they're the inflictors of a lot of the violence that I've seen. So I appreciate when you said if they pull you over and they try to identify people in the car, you say, I don't have to. You know, this is a safe place. You can see there on the emblem, you know, on the side panel of the car, this is a safe place. We're not going to violate privacy here. This is for safety.
Yeah, see, and it's so simple, anybody can do it. It's the quickest, fastest way out of their system you can find.
Yes, getting out of the beast system is of great interest to a lot of people nowadays. They want a quick exit, like the quicker the better. Just non-compliance first, and then establishing yourself affirmatively as something other than what they say you are.
Yeah.
A citizen or a slave or whatever it is.
Yeah, Bob, what's your advice to some of the people who really are tapping into their own freedom and the what I call the great self-ownership? I don't think government's legitimate at all. I take the voluntarist perspective. It's just a gang. Any advice to people out there who want to take the leap to drive without a license and follow you in your path a little bit?
You seen that notice that I posted, didn't you, on how the laws apply to you?
Yes.
You remember that? Okay.
Yeah.
My thoughts is, and I can tell anybody this, right? If you think about how government works, how their laws apply, then you have to ask yourself how they apply to you. If, say, you're driving from Nevada to California, you're driving from Utah to Arizona or whatever, you're driving somewhere, right? And you get pulled over in a state you don't live in. Now, the cop automatically assumes that you know his laws. And you're like, wait a minute. You know, how am I supposed to know your laws? I don't live here. So that's where I come up with this. If the state really had laws that applied to you, if their rules, regulations, and whatever really applied to you, then you should, by all rights, have to stop in at the port of entry, and the roads would automatically make you go there. Say you're on the freeway, you're driving along, it should automatically force you into a port of entry. And you go into the port of entry, and they have their book of 20,000 laws or codes sitting there, and and a checklist thing, and you sit down and you read through all those laws, and you either agree or disagree to them, depending, by marking them, yes, I agree, no, I don't, right? And then sign your name to it, say, yes, I've agreed to obey all your laws. And now you're free to go out and go through the city, right? That never happens. Nobody ever does that. I mean, so when you drive into a new city, you cannot be automatically expected to know their laws. You did not automatically agree to any of them. And so therefore, you cannot be expected to obey them. Okay, right?
That's fair. Absolutely. It's contract. I mean, this is, I think, the way forward is if something applies to me, we have to have a contract. And this seems to be the evolution of society. And that's a great point. Yeah. If you really wanted me to know your laws, you would stop me at the gate and then have me agree to this. And then now I know it versus pull over, in any random city, county, or state. And I got to know all your laws. Like, that's not logical.
Right. It's not. And if you think about a state, a city, a county, or whatever, on the principle of a gated community, HOA, okay? So if you think about your state as an HOA, or the city or the county as an HOA, right? Homeowners association type thing. When you drive into the state, you have to go to the office, and they say, well, if you want to live or work or play here, these are the rules you have to obey. Correct?
Yep.
Shouldn't you apply the same rule to the state, the county, or the city? They don't make you do that, so they can't automatically say they apply to you. And that's why I always challenge it. Like, show me the law or the rule or whatever that says I agreed to obey your rules. Show me a contract where I agreed to obey your rules. Show me anything that says I agreed to obey your rules.
Fantastic. Yes.
Yep. By what authority? Show me the
Yeah.
contract. Yes, this is great conversation. Thank you.
Oh, you've heard of the 100 monkeys theory?
Yes.
It's the 100 monkeys theory, right? If you think about it, where they took a group of monkeys, and they stuck them like there was 10 of them or something like that. They stuck these 10 monkeys in a cage, put a ladder in the cage, and hung a banana from the ceiling. And every time a monkey would try to climb up and get the banana, they'd hose him down with water. And they did this until all the monkeys quit climbing up after the banana.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they gradually started taking those monkeys out and bringing new monkeys in. And every time those monkeys would climb up there, they'd get hosed with water. Well, eventually, the monkeys started attacking the person or the monkey that was trying to get the banana. So, I mean, it's the same way in society. They've been taught and brainwashed so bad to do something that now they're attacking everybody who wants to or does it different.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's why we need 100 of us or more to train a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, this is what this call is doing, Bob. And Clint, we've been doing this almost 2 years now, maybe 18 months or so. But it's like hearing different voices and learning how different approaches to freedom, raising the awareness and consciousness, because we're tired of this enslavement and tyranny that's going on. And these kind of conversations are very powerful. And the Native Americans believed that what you speak echoes in eternity. So our creation through words in this video potentially is going to affect, hundreds and thousands and more people. But this is the challenge of statism, like you think you're above the law. Well, I'm above government law. I'm directly connected to source, to God. And there's just one rule, which is you don't harm people. You don't initiate harm against peaceful people. That's the only rule. And if I didn't consent, you have no authority. In 1776, the just powers of government come from the consent of the governed. Read it. If you haven't read the Declaration of Independence, go read it. This is the evolution of freedom. Bob knows.
It's funny you bring that one up because I use the Declaration of Independence a lot. And I pointed out to so many people because, they'll sit there and say that these rules apply to you. And you're like, well, okay, whatever. Right. The Declaration of Independence says that it is from the consent of the governed. And that is the key phrase right there, the consent of the governed, right? So when you vote for anybody, when you vote for a governor, senator, whoever, government president, whatever, when you vote for somebody, you have now given that somebody the right to control you, the right to tell you what to do, the right to make rules for you, the right to tell you how to live, whatever. You gave that person your freedom, your rights, your sovereignty, and now they make rules for you. That's what voting does. And people say, well, I voted for this, and if you don't vote, you must not care. Well, the only way to be free is to quit voting.
Wow. Coming up to election season here. That's a new campaign slogan.
Well, I would say I agree that action is required, but the voting booth, my perspective is that we all vote every day with our purchases, our attention, our words, our energy, our life force. So just to distinguish that, I think, Bob, you're saying don't participate in the political circus, the charades, the red team versus the blue team.
Okay, let's just say, to make it simple, right? Let's say you voted for a governor, and this was back around the COVID time. You voted for whatever governor, okay? Now, that governor implemented a mask scenario where everybody had to wear masks. Mm. And in fact, he made it, so that everybody had to get the vaccine. As simple as that might be, if somebody died from that vaccine, who's responsible?
The individual.
You could say that, but who if you voted for, let's say you voted for the governor, and the governor said, yes, everybody has to have a vaccine, aren't you as guilty as him?
Right. If you voted for him to be put into
Aren't you like the
office.
driver? Aren't you like the driver of the getaway car?
That's right. Aiding and abetting the forced vaccine.
Exactly. Aren't you as guilty as the person who did it? If anyone was harmed because of a vote you gave, then you should be as guilty as the person that they harmed, or as guilty as the person that did it.
Yeah.
And that's just my belief. I mean, that's why I don't vote or anything, because I think every time I watch and a governor says, oh, we've got to take guns away, or we've got to have these vaccinations, or we got to do this, we got to do that. There are people being harmed every day because of those. And let's say the governor took all the guns away, just say they could. And we know that not everybody listens to that, and not everybody pays attention, not everybody obeys that rule. So there's always going to be a criminal come in there and probably shoot the place up. Now, everybody that voted for that dang governor is as guilty for that murder as the person that actually pulled the trigger.
Yeah, one day we'll have a candidate. This is my vision. We have candidates fighting each other over who's going to create a more free society. That who's going to fulfill the government's role to protect our individual freedoms.
Nope.
But what we have
power
now,
corrupt.
fighting
Power
over
corrupt. An absolute power corrupts. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, that's why we have good men and women who, again, will be leaders in society. The number one job is to protect our freedoms, not to construct more rules for us to follow.
Yeah, well, good luck with that.
I got a question in regards to that. So let's say you got a person that ran for governor and you voted for him, and then you're guilty if he said everybody had to take a vaccine. Then I would be guilty, right? But let's say I voted for somebody that said absolutely no vaccines are going to be mandated, and we stand for more people's personal freedoms and like getting rid of the Patriot Act. Am I still guilty because I participated in the election process and the person that I didn't vote for won, and they're the ones that are mandating that? Or am I only not guilty if I didn't vote at all?
I wouldn't say if you didn't vote for the person that actually committed the crimes. No, I mean that would kind of you shouldn't be guilty of a crime if you didn't vote for the one that did it.
Yes, and then how about if the election process is rigged? Like even if we had a society that was
then why even participate?
Anarchist or voluntarist, we still have to come to some agreements that say, hey, you can't drive 140 miles an hour in this neighborhood where there's kids playing. And we decide that that's a good thing for people to do, and we voted on it. I think,
now how does it apply to somebody just passing through?
How do they know that?
Well, how would it apply? How would that rule apply to somebody just passing through?
Probably a posted sign.
Okay.
Just like you've got in your yard with your tree and your parking. Yeah.
Exactly. I get that.
But where I was going with that is voting is actually a useful tool to determine what the majority, and I don't like that the majority can take away an individual's liberties and cause harm.
That's why voting doesn't work.
Okay, so how do we come to a consensus where we determine that something's dangerous?
It all has to be voluntary, and if somebody does something that harms another one, then that person is guilty of committing a crime, and everybody should know that it could be punished that way. I mean, it's like, the gun didn't shoot somebody, the person did. So
yeah,
they should be punished according to the crime.
I agree.
You can't punish everybody. You can't punish everybody because somebody might commit a crime. I guess it is touchy. I'm not going to say that it doesn't have its flaws, but I know that the easiest way to do it is everybody has to live under the guise of do no harm, or do not force your will on somebody else or whatever.
I agree with you there, though. I truly agree with you there. Yeah. And David, I think I saw you in Anarchapulco. Is that right? Is that where I met you? Yeah.
Probably, man. Yeah, I was there the first 6 years after Ron Paul had his election stolen in 2012,
Yeah.
in my estimation. And I was a Ron Paul guy, put Ron Paul big old letters on the back of my car, and he was our champion of the Constitution. And I saw how they treated him and gave him 90 seconds at a debate and gave Mitt Romney 17 minutes. I'm like, this seems a little bit unfair. This seems like a scripted, rigged situation. And then Iowa and Maine and New Hampshire's, questionable. I'm like, okay. So, but yeah, I love voluntarism now. I'm gone deeper down that path, and it seems that the exit and build strategy is the way forward, from Derek Bros and John Bush, which is exit their coercive systems and build the world we want to see. I have people that are building private grocery stores, private health clinics, private schools, and media. We're creating media right here. So I think the whole system is going down because of how they're harming people, telling boys and girls to mutilate their genitals, injecting toxic chemicals to sterilize them and basically eliminate them. So it's like, what's the solution? Not John Donald Trump. Maybe he's a nationalist and going for, like something, but he ain't going to save me. I don't believe he's going to save any of you guys out there. They're going after the system. He's definitely being targeted, like they're throwing him felonies and doing all these things. It's a political system, but waiting for Superman or waiting for some, body who's going to come get me and rescue me. I think that's the part of the voting thing. It's like, oh, this is the most important election of all time. It's like, maybe the most important election is how I elect to live my life today and how I'm preparing for self-reliance and independent food, independent water, independent energy. I saw Tony Robbins say something about a cyber power blackout, and maybe Klaus Schwab or someone else. So they're saying kind of what they're going to do, like power outage, so it's like, oh, okay. So they're going to use any means necessary. And these kind of conversations are very empowering. Like, okay, what are we going to do? We can figure out together. We got a few dozen people on the call right now. People are going to watch later. We're smart. We can put our heads together and find solutions instead of outsourcing our responsibility for our own lives and be the example that we want to see in the world. And that's what I got at Anarchapulco. I love those people down there, is that we are the change that we are searching for and seeking. And that's where the real work comes in. I got to take a look in the mirror. How am I preparing myself and building myself, and then building relationships and building trusting bonds. And that's what Bob's talking about, like the church. We got to build this community where this is a safe, sacred place in here. And if you come here, please respect the sacred space. If you don't respect the sacred space, then we're going to ask you to leave. And this is where it's going. It's going to be what I see, the bifurcation of humanity, from coercive relationships to consensual relationships. It's so simple, as Bob's demonstrating. What we're dealing with is fear. And so I think that's a good point to recognize inside myself and ourselves, like, oh man, I'm afraid of these things. But just speaking with Bob here the last hour and a half has been really good to realize, Bob, I don't think you're afraid of anything, brother. Is that true?
I literally, well, I do worry about upsetting my wife at times. but other than that, no, there's not much I'm afraid of. I've come close to dying several times, so I don't worry about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I look at things different in the sense that I don't think we, I don't know. I just believe that we go on and on and on and on. So for me to fear where I might end up next would be stupid, because I have long time dreams of my wife and I long before I ever knew who she was. It was like I don't know, energy. I don't know how many of you have ever been in a store and you're walking down an aisle and you just happen to feel the energy of the person next to you without even talking to them or looking at them or anything. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, I feel energy sometimes.
Yeah. Well, okay. So my dreams, I mean, I have dreams of my wife in ancient times. And I know it's the same person because the energy's the same. Where like there were times when we had big old mansions, and there was times when we lived in a place where all we had was a dirt floor, and there were times when we had cars and then horse-drawn wagons, and there's that. I've known my wife forever, and I've had several wives before her, but this one I know for a fact is the right one because I've known her forever. It just took me a long time to find her. And that's usually how it goes sometimes, when you think about it. We go through life thinking we found our soulmate, and if it truly was your soulmate, if it truly is your soulmate or your twin flame or however you want to call it, right? You have no doubts. There's never any doubt as to how you feel about that person. And you don't have any doubts as what they might do behind your back. You don't have any doubts when they're not around. Nothing. You just don't. It's not there. There's no jealousy in a situation like that. You never fear losing the person. You never fear that somebody's going to walk in and take them away from you, or they're going to fall in love with somebody else. You don't fear those things because you already know. And that's how it is. I mean, I went through several relationships, but I kept having dreams of this one, knowing I wasn't with the right one until the time came when we met actually in a phone chat thing online, and we talked for a while. But when I finally first met her, it was like instantaneous. I knew who she was immediately, and we've been happy ever since. So it's you feel the energy. I mean, I know I've got 5 kids, okay? I have no connection to 4 of them. I just don't know what it is about them. I just don't connect with them. I have one son that I connect with. And he's probably the one that should not want to connect with me at all because he got treated the worst of all. He was the one that was always thrown out so that I could have the woman I wanted to be with. They didn't like him, so I threw him out. He's the one that was always abandoned and I took my women over him. And he's the one that's still here. He's the one that still loves me. He still unconditionally loves me. And that's because he's been here through eternity. Every life I've ever lived, he's been there. Not as a son. Sometimes he's been my brother. Sometimes he's been just a friend. But he's always been there forever. And those things is the reason I don't fear nothing. Because I know that those people's energy, those people that I knew, will always find me again. It's just the way it is. We'll find them. They'll find me. However, we will always find each other again. It may take longer, like this time. It took my whole life to find this one again. But it happens.
Yeah. It's so romantic. It's such a beautiful way of looking at life.
I'm going to peacefully bow out right now. I've got to go spend some time with my wife because I'm on here all day and whatever. So if you don't mind,
Bob.
I'm going to bow out and go spend some time with my wife.
We appreciate you, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Bob.
thank you.
Yeah.
Love your
Thank
story.
you all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, love you, man. Great job. Great work. We'll stay in touch. Maybe we'll get you on in another, few months or year or something. But we appreciate you so much for all the resources and the heart and the example that you're setting out there for everyone to cut ties with the state, be the church, exercise it, have no fear. Have a great night, Bob.
It works for me. You too. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thanks. this is a kind of confab. So it's a kind of a contribution and, back and forth.
We are here every month to share our experience and wisdom and research and education, to learn from each other about, on the highways and byways in particular, because the encroachment of government doesn't seem to stop. And at this rate, we won't be able to go outside of, who knows what the government would like, how they'd like to control us, government overreach in general. And so all the things that we learn and, apply to really every area of life. Now, for the rest of the period, I'd like to engage you guys in whatever you're doing to fight back against your local vehicle code. If you've maybe had some encounters roadside with a law enforcement, or maybe you've found a way to nullify a ticket, or you've maybe been traveling without driver's license or license plate, you want to tell us what that's like? It's really open, and we're just here to share. You can find us on our Commoner Law Group channel on either YouTube or Rumble. Hey, Victor, it's great to have you. Is this your first time?
I think it's like my second time. Yeah. Yeah, long time. First time caller. I have a motorcycle and a Mitsubishi Montero that are kind of just extra vehicles, and I happen to register them in not an LS, in a trust that I just made up just to put stuff in. And I put the Montero and the motorcycle in there, and then I loaned that vehicle out, and people borrowed it, and someone went through a red light and I got the ticket in the mail. But it's like the tickets to the trust. So it's like they can't, what is the trust going to show up to court? So I just basically ignored it, and I'm sure it's going to go away, because a human being cannot show up as a trust. The trustee could, but they're looking for the surety. So there is no surety with a trust, which I think is beautiful. Also, those cameras, gosh, it's just, they can get affected by rain. They could get affected by dust. They could get affected by gravel and rocks and, other objects and stuff like that. So they can get a lot of people, but only one person that accidentally, their tires slip in the gravel and rocks get thrown at there or something like that, and then it wouldn't work anymore. That'd be too bad. Or maybe a bird flying in the air takes a crap on the camera, and then you can't see out of the lens. Gee whiz. That's it. That's all I got to say.
So, Victor, I appreciate that your vehicles or motorcycles are in a trust. So the tickets, just ignore them, and nothing's probably going to happen, right? That's the strategy.
I really don't see how anything could happen. I mean, who are they going to come and get?
Who are they going to subpoena, right? Who are they going to? A warrant? We're issuing a warrant for a trust. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. And I'm sure that is how people that really know this stuff, or, let's say the DuPont Trust or the Rockefeller Trust or whatever. I mean, that's how you can't go after any one of those people, because it's the trust. And yeah, they say own nothing and control everything. And that's what's happening in the trust. And so then it's not a big deal to have the vehicle with a license plate on it that is registered to a trust, because it's not going to get any red light cameras or anything like that. But I do like the idea of, church business and putting the sticker or whatever over the VIN. I tried driving with plates on that said private, and I got pulled over, and I said that, I'm not, I don't have a license. I'm not driving. I'm not operating a motor vehicle, and that whole bit. But I did offer him my insurance, because I do believe that I should be insured in case I cause harm in an accident. However, I think what he did was he took the VIN number off of the insurance paperwork and then ran that and saw that I had did have expired plates. So what I really need to do with that vehicle, because that wasn't the Montero, that was my pickup truck, and I hadn't had plates on it for a while. So he saw that they were expired. So had I rescinded my driver's licenses or license plates or unregistered my vehicle with the state, I think that would have got me out of that. But driving around with, a towel over my plates to avoid cameras and stuff like that, for a while they had the West Seattle Bridge shut down, and they were ticketing people for driving over the lower bridge. You had to drive a long ways around, but it was through a camera system. And if you're hauling a bicycle on the back of your vehicle that's blocking the plate, or some people were just taking their plates completely off, driving across and putting it on. I'd made up a paper plate and put it on there at one time, and it said, in like Spanish, "Don't tread on me." And then it said like Jalisco, Mexico, like it was a temporary plate from Mexico, right? And then the number spelled out, the numbers spelled out "fuck you" on it. And I know that thing got like shot with a camera like probably 100 times going that way or whatever. So, but the camera doesn't know what to do with it, so it can't register anything in. It gets basically thrown away. I mean, what they would have to do is look at the photos in the camera and then see how many times that vehicle drove through, and then try to identify that vehicle to a license plate. So the camera system is like, it's probably the easiest to get out of and the easiest to avoid. And if you drive, the ticket for driving without your plates is a lot less expensive than 100 tolls or, whatever, or, yeah. So I'm all for getting around all that. So, yeah.
Good. Creative. I love it. All right, Mary, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing good. I just discovered you guys, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome.
I haven't done the giving up the license or the registration yet. My sister did it, and so I'm kind of investigating it. I am an American national already, so my little card says "Do not detain." So I just hand that to the police officer. But I drive so carefully, they've never had to pull me over. I've never had a ticket or anything in my entire old woman life. So that's good. Thank you. But one of the things I did do that I wanted to share is that I have a boat in the bay here. And that was really difficult because nobody talks about boats, and you have to have a CF number in the bay. And so then they want to tax you. Anything that's out there in the bay, they go around and they want to tax you property tax for it. So the way I got out of that was to put it in a foreign trust, and it worked. I just got my DMV notice for the boat because it has to have a CF to be in the bay, and it's too big to park on a driveway. So I don't really have a choice. I had to get creative, but they only charged me $20 and they took me off the tax list because I proved that I wasn't a US citizen. I'm an American national, and that it was in a foreign private trust. So I got out of property tax that way, which I think is important to know because they can't tax a foreign trust.
May I ask,
So,
was it,
yes,
if I may ask, was that a 98 foreign grantors trust?
I did get a 98 number, yes.
Okay, yeah, that's
but I created the private trust myself.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But yeah, it worked.
I
I
also
just thought
wanted,
that was a good success story to share with everybody, because taxes are something I don't want to deal with. And I did get out of taxes because I wrote them a letter, and I had already sent to all the government officials that I'm not a taxpayer and here's why. And I sent a lengthy letter as to why. And I sent that to the IRS, and they stopped charging me taxes. I haven't heard back from them, so I thought that was pretty good too. So they don't know what to do with us. Um, I like the American National because they actually recognize that in their codes. They understand what that is, and it's on my passport too. I finally got 5 stars on my passport, so I was happy about that, because that means do not detain as well. Um,
I've heard controversial stuff about the stars. Some people are saying that the stars has no meanings, but a meaning at all. And then I've heard it that it actually does,
it does.
it does,
It
right?
does have meaning. Yeah. You can go to Black Site 32, and he he kind of explains what the meaning is of the stars.
Yeah.
And it seems to be correct from, because when I've used it, they leave me alone. They don't even want to look me in the eye. They just they want me to go by fast. Black
Oh,
Site, BLACKSITE 32.
very good. And
And he'll
I wanted to mention also for the insurance thing, there are bonds. Like my brother has an international driver's license, and he has an indemnity insurance bond. So he doesn't go through the regular insurance. They won't even give him a regular license. They took away his license because of he owns a company and he owes money in employment taxes. And they went after his person, even though it was the business, and they won't give him a driver's license. They suspended his driver's license, and he needs it to operate in commerce because he's a contractor. But on the private side, he doesn't need it. He has a private international driver's license and insurance bond. And you can get also a DOT plate, um, you know, Department of Transportation plate, which is also very recognized by the public policy officers. So that's an option too.
How did
Yes.
he get the indemnity bond?
Through a company, actually the company is called American National, but there's a few companies out there that do the bonds for you. I'm not sure if American National is still in operation, but I believe so. But yes, it was through that company, and he had to pay for it, and I think it cost about $700, but he has a very large bond, like over
That's
10,
good to know.
yeah.
And I know some people use 1099s as their insurance
Yes,
as
yes,
well. Yeah.
the 1099, I think it's maybe the A. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yes, the
Yes.
A.
And they put the government number. I think it's Jarrett's Realty.
Oh,
Jarrett
yeah,
J.
Jared's Realty. Yeah.
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 They explain how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's all I had to share, but it's nice to meet all you guys. Thank you
you,
for
Mary.
doing this.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Glenn. It was great.
You're
This
so welcome.
one was awesome. Thank you.
Like what you said about we don't have to ask the government for permission not to be slaves. That was awesome. That just says it all.
This is the energy that's rising. We don't, our freedom and our rights come from the creator of the universe. And so for us to recognize that fact and to be in this group, with 30 people, it's like, oh, I'm not alone, right? One of the techniques the state and these communist organizations use is isolation to make you feel alone. And we got to see that in the last 3 or 4 years. I'm all by myself, but then people like us, and we get together online, in person, high five, hug each other, say, hey man, we're the same consciousness, like we're fighting through this dark of the night situation. I believe we're going to come out and it's going to be a glorious new renaissance of creativity, of freedom, of connection, community, and society, because we're going to create it. And I have friends that are creating it. Colette and I have co-created this thing the last 18 months. Amazing conversations. Michael Mankinder's doing some good stuff. I think I saw Craig on here too, So I invite you guys to consider, you guys are the leaders. You guys are the ones we've been waiting for. And for me, I tweeted something recently, which is like, I'm not trying to wake up other people. I'm trying to wake up myself. And Bob is one of the great examples tonight. I'm really inspired to hear Bob share his story, which is he's not afraid of anything. And wouldn't that be amazing if we were not afraid of anything? Rain, snow, cold, heat, nothing. I think that's what the spiritual awakening is about, where it says, you can take my body, but you cannot take my soul. And this is what's happening as people realize they've been selling their soul for fiat currency, and they are unhappy and sad versus being enlightened and being full of joy and full of personal power and strength and courage and love and everything that is beautiful in this experience, because they've held us down for about 100 years, at least. So humanity is awakening and we're coming out. So I want to thank Clint for, leading this and co-creating this with me, and allowing this type of conversation to happen, because it's the leaders that create these things, but we're just a space. Clint kind of cut out in the beginning, but it's a confab. We respect your sovereignty. We acknowledge the kings and the queens that you are, each one listening now and in the recorded session, that we're a space to create. And as Bob says, a safe space, to feel safe and to really start to express ourselves and to tap into what we're doing here, what our mission is. Because I agree with Bob. I believe we go on forever. I don't know, exactly, but I think I've been here before. I think this is a kind of reoccurring game or drama or beauty or something magical that is not taught in the mainstream. Because once we find out that we're eternal and there's nothing to fear, then we go all in on whatever we believe in, versus hesitating because of fear, protectionism, and all these things. So it's such a joy to be with you, Clint, and Victor, and Mary, Michael, Christy, Susan, Kirsten, Portia, Suzanne, Evelyn, Wenji, Tria, Carrie, T.O., Natasha, Mary, Liberty B, Natasha Lee, Jim Nelson, Abra, Alexander, and JC Ford, and of course, Bob Dicsoun, the guest speaker tonight.
We look forward to seeing you again.